All right, everybody. We got Brandon back here with Rip Helm. He's been spicing it up recently and is playing some weirdo brews, but today he is piloting Rest in Peace and Energy Field. And TaeWoo came and borrowed one of the shopkeep's copy of Pox. I recognize this deck anywhere. It is Mishra's Factories, Hymns, Smallpox, Innocent Blood, Diabolic Edict, and a whole lot of love. He's also running a single copy of Ob Nixilis, and that thing is quite a draw engine late game. I've never seen it played in any other deck, but it seems pretty good here. Brandon, I remember speculating on this matchup from across the room, and Brandon is playing like let's see, he's playing a full four of all of his combo pieces, but if they get ripped out of his hand, he might be a little helpless. But Pox does not kill quickly, and it does rely on its graveyard a lot, so I feel like Brandon is probably favored here, just running 4 main deck Rest in Peace. And Brandon is getting him tier on turn 2. TaeWoo did not have the turn 1 Inquisition or Thoughtseize. It appears that he actually just like left up Fatal Push. And Brandon is protecting combo pieces by 2-for-1ing himself with the Force of Will anyway. I don't think it's clear to Brandon what he's playing yet, but he pulled the trigger on removing Jace from his hand, likely due to either the presence of another Jace in his hand, unlikely, or the presence of all the combo pieces that he needs already. Whereas Jace is kind of used in this deck as a mid-range option. Oh, yeah. So I was wondering whether Back to Basics was going to work at all against a deck with like 12 or more swamps. But look at this draw from TaeWoo here, who has relied on turn 1 and 2 non-basics and is going to be really, really badly hampered by this. Possibly stonewalled, because I didn't catch a glance of a swamp in hand after. I mean, that's the exact same text as the regular card, so... There's a swamp off the top. And that must be a cursed scroll. It's going to be hard for him to unload his hand with only 1 mana per turn and a Fatal Push that is almost targetless in this matchup. I'm very concerned. Yeah. So this is concerning because I feel like since Brandon snapped off that the force on the hymn, he was protecting very specific cards, and he might just lose his energy field now. If he has a brainstorm, then this might be game over already. And going for the 1 copy of Tundra is a little risky. He tanked on it for a second, but it's got high upsides because he didn't have his 2nd copy of White Source yet. Oh, okay. So he is not hiding the remaining card in his hand. This will be a perfect E-tutor if he just puts... energy field on the top where it's protected, or if, I mean, I guess he could put Helm or the thing that makes angels on top if he wants to go that way, but it depends on the last card, and I don't know what it is. I can tell you that with Rip in play, there's no removing it. Pox is unable to do so. Okay, so he's stopped on the What is it's the quest that creates angels at end of turn or sorry, I am going to pull it up. So Luminarch Ascension is going on top of the deck, and it says that at the beginning of each opponent's end step, if you didn't lose life this turn, you may put a quest counter on it. And as long as Luminarch Ascension has 4 more quest counters on it, you can just activate it for white 1 and make a 4/4 white angel. This is quite a good win condition here. In a deck that just doesn't have any way of doing direct damage to the guy at the moment. So you go 4 turns without losing any life. And you can begin pumping out angels, which TaeWoo really doesn't have a lot of ways of dealing with that. First off, black can't just like destroy that enchantment very well. And the never-ending stream of angels will overwhelm his amount of like sacrifice and fatal pushes. It seems that he really wants to make 3 mana this turn. Oh, he's holding 2 fatal push. If he gets rid of at least a card. Oh, if it's both fatal push. I see. So he's just buying 1 turn here. And he really needs to get another swamp next turn in order to just stay active here. If it's another card that he can't play, yeah, so he can cast Cursed Scroll, but he can't activate it. So Luminarch Ascension goes to 2. But Brandon isn't making any forward progress in this game besides just trying to get this Ascension online. Here's another activation for a fatal push, costing 1 more turn. You shouldn't be activating it like that, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. Brandon found the energy field. Okay, so I don't think that our Pox friend can win this game under any circumstances anymore. He might continue playing, but at this point, I'm okay with it if you make the argument that you like want to see the rest of your opponent's deck or something like that. But with 2 very slow decks like this, I don't want to run out the clock by playing in a hopeless game anymore from the Pox player's side. Although he did have to read Energy Field and some other of these cards, so he may not grasp the reality of the situation with Energy Field and Rest in Peace both in play. He can cast a Liliana. It won't do anything. Brandon has to lose a life on this fetch, so he will not get an Ascension trigger this turn. But he does not want to see the Liliana, so... Wait, is that right? Do you still get a counter if you pay a life for a fetch? No, you do not. That's unfortunate. He was not supposed to get a counter that turn. So he was not supposed to start with his angels coming out already due to the fetch. That's not to say that he could have lost this game, because I don't think that he could. Come on, man. No, it's Fatal Push. It's not mana. It's mana cost. What the fuck? This is Legacy, man. I know that it's a new card, but wow, dude, this is the best card printed in forever. This thing is a beast. How do we have to look up Fatal Push? Anyway, let's think about ways that TaeWoo can improve his matchup for next game. I'm thinking that he really needs to aggressively destroy Brandon's lands while thought seizing him repeatedly before he can really get his combo online, because he doesn't have a favorable way of interacting with that. We have to make everything discard, and the raw amount of creature removal that Pox is normally full of is not going to... He'll do it forever, man. Looks like both players a little... Not quite seeing the full picture as many of us would as this game progresses. Just due to, both of them playing a little bit of odd cards here. I wonder what kind of sideboard cards we could expect out of Pox. I know Brandon's sideboard, actually. It's full of a lot of things that are, well, sort of irrelevant in this matchup. If his... Yeah, so... I was thinking that TaeWoo should start the game off strong with multiple sinkholes and then small poxes. But I think we'll see things like he'll have maybe Pithing Needle, an additional couple copies of Sinkhole possibly in the sideboard, and maybe a couple of... Well, needles are going to be good. I'm trying to think about if surgicals are even possible to use here, because sometimes I do agree with inquisitioning someone and then surgicaling the rest of those cards out of their deck. But if they just land an early rip and you can't deal with it, then the card becomes completely dead. So it's a little worrisome. I think that Pox traditionally tries to eat a lot of creatures, and that's not at all what Brandon cares about here. We might want to just ritual into Liliana and pray we get there. But TaeWoo's going to very slowly die to recursive angels here. TaeWoo finally came up with a third swamp to enable him to constantly activate Cursed Scroll. But without the ability to do it multiple times per turn, he can't deal with these angels. So here's 8. Hopefully for our Pox player, he's got a couple more ways of disrupting Brandon's hand in game 2, because he didn't actually threaten him. It gave him all the time in the world, and then has no favorable way of interacting with a combo like that. So try to reset our life counter here. Push two similarly colored decks across the table from each other. Port, Wasteland, Scroll, Dark Ritual, Liliana. I would be very tempted to cast a turn 1 Liliana here. I think that this is perfectly acceptable. But he ships it back. I don't really know what kind of hand he's looking for here. But turn 1 Liliana, if it gets past a Force of Will, which is sort of a lot to ask, but I think that it would have, because Brandon doesn't have it. Pretty sure. But turn 1 Liliana is pretty historically hard to deal with for a base blue-white deck. That seems pretty appealing. I wonder what it is that he's looking for exactly. Maybe he looked at it and he thought, this doesn't have an Inquisition. I'm not safe here. I'm going to throw it back. He decides to keep this one, so with 2 Pithing Needles, he's able to effectively needle Helm and Jace quite well. And sometimes you just Inquisition someone, see like a couple of Flooded Strands, and just like destroy them, right? So here's a turn 1 Thoughtseize. Our opponent is on the draw, so his Spell Pierce was nullified. He did not have the Force of Will. That Liliana would have been needled on turn 1, so that's something that maybe he considered and I did not. I don't know. We'll see how this hand plays out. He's checking and knows that Brandon plays a lot of basics and had a back to basics in the main last game, which kind of shuts off Wasteland, or sorry, it shuts off Mishra's Factory and Port. So his mana situation is a little touchy here. He decides to take Spell Pierce instead of Energy Field. And I do not know what that named. Pithing Needle. And this can grab Flooded Strand. If he wanted, of course. Brandon picks up a Scalding Tarn. Leaves up Counterspell mana. TaeWoo draws Ghost Quarter for the turn. Does not have a threat. Does not have any discard sources. How about a Smallpox? Lose a life, sacrifice a land isn't all that bad. Or wait, no. Is that a new printing of Sinkhole? Yeah, okay. Sinkhole your island. And that's pretty bad. That might prompt a counterspell from Brandon. I mean, trade 2 mana for 2 mana, 1 card for 1 card. Mismatched Altered Islands. I thought that he was playing with a bunch of Unhinged, but I see Unglued now also. Ghost Quarter quite bad in this matchup. He's got infinity basics. Brandon is just free to draw and play combo pieces as he gets them. I'm curious as to what the pithing needles are, because 4 mana. Yep, so because it could just be on Helm. He might be playing that because he's got nothing better to do here. And what is that? Is it 3 mana black creature? I want to say that that guy has First Strike and Infect. Is that a Phyrexian Crusader? There's no way it is, right? Because the rest of the deck doesn't have anything to do with infecting people, but I vaguely recognize the art, and I own a playset of those things. I'm unsure why I do, but I do. And 2 needles are down, but Jace is active. So Jace will draw 3 cards on a Brainstorm. And guys, will somebody let me know what is the land that TaeWoo activated to draw a card? What is that? Oh, I vaguely remember. Was there something about like a shipyard or something in a kind of recent set that draws cards? How do I even find the name of this? And what is it? Is it draw a card if you have 0 cards in hand? That has to be the only way that that is like a reasonable Magic card, right? So Cursed Scroll hits play. I want to know what this card is. I'm going to Oracle with a, let's see, search criteria of text is no cards in hand. And there were too many results, so we're going to refine our search, saying it must be a land. Jace is ticking away here. There's nothing that can be done. I want to know what those needles are naming because I'm surprised about the Jace. One of them must be on Helm, right? See, drawing at the end of his turn, then activating Curse Scroll, that's amazing. Jace takes 2. And why don't his lands untap? I'm like, what does this card do? Is it called something Wreckage? I found it. Guys, I found it. Seagate Wreckage came out of some set that looks like a triangle. Oath of the Gatewatch. It says 2 colorless. Oh, 2 and colorless. Draw a card. Activate this ability if you have no cards in hand. I don't understand why his lands didn't untap last turn, or... Did I miss the Back to Basics a long time ago? I thought that, okay. And now we check the art for Phyrexian. Phyrexian Crusader. He scoops to the Terminus. Yeah, I mean, that card is... I don't think that that's a reasonable card to be playing. Good games, Brandon. Well done. First off, I love Seagate Wreckage. Second up, what was Needle on? Why? How is Jace taking over the game?